A man named John Jones entered a cave near Utah Lake with the intention of exploration. During the exploration, he decided to set a new record by going into the tightest part of the cave, but little did he know that this decision was going to be the last decision of his life. Known as Nutty Putty, he was crawling through the cave's tight passages, but he lost his way and accidentally entered a part of the cave where no one had ever gone before, a space as tight as a grave, where not just moving hands but even breathing was difficult. And unfortunately, in this condition, John got stuck upside down. This is the story of 26-year-old John Jones, whose last 27 hours of life were spent in this cave. Welcome once again to Discover TV's videos. Near Salt Lake City, Utah, there are small rocks that house the Nutty Putty named Hydrothermal Cave. In 1960, this cave was discovered by a man named Dale Green, and since then, thousands of adventurous young people have been coming here to test their skills. Nutty Putty Cave is quite famous due to its tight, slippery, and twisted pods, which has only one entrance, that to just 30 inches wide. That means only those whose chest and waist are less than 30 inches can enter. Every year, around 20,000 people used to come here to sharpen their skills, but between 1999 and 2004, some accidents happened, and questions were raised about the cave's safety. In one incident, a 23-year-old remained stuck in the cave's depths for 6 hours, and in another, a young man was trapped upside down for an entire night due to these incidents. In 2006, the authorities closed the Nutty Putty Cave, but professional cavers argued that if it is to be closed, it should only be for those without caving experience, as mostly they're the ones who get trapped. On the other hand, officials said Nutty Putty Cave was like a ticking time bomb that could take a life at any time. The debate continued between professional cavers and officials until 2007, when the cave was reopened with new rules. A management committee was formed, which would only allow entry to those with significant caving experience and professional equipment. To enter Nutty Putty, one had to apply for a permit 21 days in advance. John and Josh Jones, two brothers from Salt Lake City, also applied for the permit. On November 24, 2009, at 8 p.m., 26-year-old John Jones entered the Nutty Putty Cave system with his group. Both brothers had some prior caving experience, but this was their first time in Nutty Putty. For the first hour inside the cave, everything went normally, and they explored the largest cavity called the Big Slide. That's when John, Josh, and two other friends took the risk of going deeper into the cave. The most difficult part, called the birth canal. The birth canal is so tight that very few people have reached near it. Not only extremely narrow, but finding the path itself is also very difficult. In the past too, many have gotten stuck on the way to the birth canal. However, John, his brother, and two friends were fit, so they decided to proceed, while the rest of the team stayed back. The idea of reaching the birth canal was actually John's, which is why he was leading. The path was so tight that John was crawling on his stomach, thinking he was entering the birth canal, but he unknowingly took a wrong turn and entered a path called the corkscrew. This path was suitable only for the slimmest cavers. On the cave map, this was the path where John should have taken a right turn towards the birth canal, but instead, he turned left. As he proceeded, the path got tighter, and he couldn't turn back. He kept going forward, hoping it would open up a little ahead so he could turn back. Then he saw a downward space and thought he might be able to turn back from there. But things worsened. Unfortunately, when he entered this 10 by 18 inch space, it was a dead end, and now John was stuck upside down in a space as tight as a washing machine. His head was down, legs up, and the space was so tight that even his arms were pressed against his body. He couldn't use them. John tried many times to get out but failed each time. At this point, he began calling out to his brother. A few minutes later, Josh arrived and could only see John's legs. At first, he joked about his brother's condition, but when he realized how serious it was, Josh panicked too. He pulled John's legs multiple times, but that made things worse. John slipped deeper, stuck upside down. John couldn't move his body at all. At this point, both brothers realized they needed professional help. The issue was, at that cave depth, there was no mobile signal for a 911 call. Josh had to go back out, call for help, and return to John's location. About 3 hours later, the first rescue team arrived. It was Susie Motola, who tried for 2 hours to pull John out, but he was more tightly stuck than expected. The space was so tight that Susie even cut John's jeans to gain half a centimeter more space. But it didn't work. Eventually, Susie got exhausted and had to leave. Outside, John's wife, daughter, and around 30 rescue workers had arrived. They were brainstorming different ways to pull John out. One suggestion even included amputating his legs. Ultimately, they agreed to use ropes and a pulley system attached to his legs to pull him out. The challenge was to drill holes into the cave rocks to fix the pulleys without letting the ropes rub against the rocks. All the weight had to be borne by the pulley. Drilling into the rocks came with the risk of collapse, but there was no other option. During the drilling, some rocks slid and even fell on John. Working 700 feet deep in the cave was not only difficult but time-consuming. Due to narrow passages, only one rescuer could go in at a time. Above ground, the number of rescuers had now crossed 100, but they still couldn't do much. Knowing this, rescuers sped up their efforts to at least get John upright. After hours of preparation, the pulley was finally installed. John was pulled by his legs, but new problems rose. His legs were in such a position that they couldn't bend, and when pulled, his feet would hit the cave ceiling. Still, with great effort, they managed to pull him out significantly. Now his face was visible to the rescuers. One rescuer later said John's eyes were red, but there was a moment of joy on his face. The first time in 19 hours that John could see out of that narrow shaft. Now, only one final pull was needed, and John would be fully out. But suddenly, one of the pulleys failed again, and John slid back into the same spot where he had been trapped for nearly 20 hours. John started panicking. A two-way communication system was sent in so he could talk to his wife and calm down. It worked, and John felt better. After 19 hours, the preparations to pull him again were complete. This had to be done very carefully, as every pull put immense pressure on John's legs. This time, they managed to pull him far enough that his face was fully visible. A rescuer said John's eyes were red, but there was a moment of happiness on his face. But suddenly, one of the pulleys failed again, and John slid back to the same position where he had been trapped for 20 hours. In the final attempt to save him, rescuers tried drilling around him to break the rocks, but it was probably too late. John stopped moving and stopped responding. His wife tried waking him up over the radio, but nothing worked. At this point, a brave paramedic was sent in to check John's pulse. What everyone feared was true. John Jones was declared dead on November 25, 2009, at 11:50 p.m. His wife couldn't believe that her husband died because of such a small mistake. She hoped the pulse check was wrong and that he was still alive, but the truth was in front of everyone. What doctors had predicted for 10 hours, John managed to survive for an additional 17 hours due to his good health. Several plans were made to retrieve John's body, including one to cut it in two, but ultimately it was decided to leave the body in the cave permanently. The Nutty Putty Cave was sealed forever and declared John's grave. Even today, John Jones' body remains in the same position inside Nutty Putty Cave, a stark reminder of the dangers of cave exploration. Outside the cave, a plaque has been placed in his memory. We hope you will also like and share this video from Discover TV. Thank you very much for your loving comments. See you in the next amazing video.